Now, if people are ideas, what kind of ideas are they? Well, in what I've come across, people are an idea that is completely independent of, or as independent as possible, of everything else in their world. There is not something else that decides for them. They make all their decisions. Now, they may not be able to act on their decisions, like if you are silenced by abusive parents and things, but in your head, if you can think ideas for yourself, even if you can't bring yourself to say them, that's what I mean. Because the reason why the independence is, I say characters are ideas, characters are people, but I don't mean every single character. Because because there's a certain development necessary. It's just like how babies aren't really complete people. And you're not really a person quite until maybe 4 years old. That's, honestly, it's what my mother says. My mother says that every parent always remembers their children as when they were 4 years old, because that's when you're first person. Now, I honestly have a terrible time distinguishing when a kid is whatever age, but it sounds pretty legit to me. God, I hate. Whatever. Point being is, just like how a baby has to go through stages to become a person, physically and mentally, characters have to go through development to become more independent. When your idea of the character is the slate, and you know how they'll react to certain situations, but you don't know every single detail they'll put, you have to move for them. In role-playing or story writing, if your character isn't developed fully, you may have a harder time making them seem more individual. You'll try to force words out of them, and maybe the words will come out kind of cliche and simple and boring and not really like a person, like they had any thought put into it. Now that's no big deal. What is a big deal is when a character develops beyond the person who wrote them. It sounds crazy, but if you write a character and you believe in them and you put enough effort into them, you can make it so that you understand how they work, how they tick, that you can create a personality core. And when you add on memories to that personality core, you know exactly how they will react. And you can completely write them, act out as them, do whatever you want, but you wouldn't be pushing it. You would tap into that character and be able to do exactly what they would do, as if you're imitating a person in real life, or predicting what a person would do in real life. When I write for my characters, I have one character that I think is almost completely developed. Her name is Taylor. And Taylor I've had for a long time. She's not my oldest character. And I don't know if she's gone through the most of any of my characters, but she's very special. Because she's been the most interesting of recent late, or whatever. Now the thing is, she goes through a lot of personality changes, and she's gone through a lot of alternate universe changes and everything. So technically there are about 5, 6, 7, or maybe infinity Taylors. But there's one Taylor that has every single memory of all of those, but they're all in the past tense, even if they're happening at the same time. This Taylor, the Taylor Collective, is the developed one. It's not the Taylor that's actually in the scenario, it's a Taylor that is writing the scenario. If you're writing a story of yourself, it's not you that's in there, it's a version of you, but you get this feeling, even if you're writing a story, even if you're doing a memoir, you writing it is different from you in it. And I like to think that Taylor is the one writing it. I can even, if I'm stumped at what she would do, I can literally turn to her, picture her sitting somewhere, and would say, what would you do in this situation? And say, Taylor would say, what the hell? Sorry, distractions, basement, ants and shit. I have to get rid of that. Bus almost hits you. I don't know why I thought about bus, but Taylor would, depending on the age in the scenario, younger she is, the more she'd flip out. Though if she got too young, if she was like 4 to 8 years old, she would probably cry or something. She was a really shy baby, shy kid, and then developed, and then crazy stuff happened with her mutation. In the original story, she had a really dark past, and it really sucked. And it was the first time I ever tried to make a character that would have a sad story. And it ended up that the stories I made for my first 3 original characters were already sad, so I just didn't notice that. But basically, if a character gets to a point where they act completely independent of you, like the characters that an actor would play if they started to tap into them and be completely different people when they're in character, and then they have to get out and get into character, and it takes a while. If they make that character a living, breathing thing, and you share your body with them, it can be wonderful, or it can be, well, dangerous. If you're schizophrenic, and it's a bad, negative, harmful kind of schizophrenic, you know, shit can go wrong with that. Now, schizophrenic images that people create, I don't think are fully developed characters, even if they can take over you. Because they're kind of more like, they don't have a past, usually. It's not like a full person. You know? It's not like you have different memories. It's just this virus that's trying to manipulate you. It's like a bunch of random gossiping girls, well, bad stereotype, but a bunch of people making fun of you, guy or girl, whatever, or neither, or both. And in your head, that's what you're hearing. You don't actually hear the defense mechanisms and the meaning and the causes of everything they're doing that exists in the real world, but in your head, you only see the end result. You don't have backstories for your schizophrenic images. That's what I think. And then, if you develop them more, if you conquer your schizophrenia, which I heard on a TED Talk once, and it was amazing. It was really wonderful. They can start to get their own memories, they can become stable, and they can be completely different people, and you can have 5 people living in one body, and it can be stressful, or it can be amazing. And here's why I obsess about this idea. Because when we develop artificial intelligence, which we fucking will, because we will continue brain study and we'll be able to digitize memories and all of that awesome stuff, we will be able to put people into data and have artificial intelligence that is the person. Now, if your character is as developed as a person, maybe even more developed than some people who act like animals and don't really think for themselves, and you put them into data, the person wouldn't be able to tell who was created in fiction and who was created in sex. They wouldn't be able to tell. And isn't that the kind of stats we want to reach? Where we can create life from thinking? When a 5-year-old can create life? Isn't that incredible? People worry about artificial intelligence coming from robotics and all this stuff, but we already have artificial intelligence. It's called acting, it's called storywriting, it's called books and stories and movies. These characters that exist in different planes of reality. They exist in our heads as the writers, and they exist in worlds inside of heads as characters in the story. And this brings us back to what level are you considered a full person. And I think the highest level I can think of for day-to-day life is that we are ideas that create ideas that create ideas. And on. It's this singularity effect where I can, well, someone else can do it better, but at this time, but a writer can write a story about a writer writing a story about a writer writing a story. He goes deep in as deep as you want. And if every single step down reaches you and reaches independence, you're a fucking god, and they're on your same level. You're a god that creates gods. It's incredible. A god that creates gods. And yet we're all equal. And we're all just people. Because when everyone has the power, nobody is special. It's incredible. And yet people don't think of them as people. People will write stories where everyone gets murdered. Everyone dies. People write stories where people get tortured and all this stuff. People will make drawings and art of people being tortured to vent. And don't even get me started on the porn. People do it because they think they're just pictures. Because they don't conceive an idea of that person. But everyone else does. People, not everyone else, but people who see that and think of a person. If you saw a picture of someone getting brutally tortured, you'd react. If you saw a drawing of someone getting tortured, and you didn't react, what's going on? Saw a lifelike drawing, you would react if you couldn't tell that it was drawn or not. When you have to realize that every picture is drawn, whether or not it's drawn by pixels, by a camera, or by a person. They're all drawn. You're being a bit of a hypocrite. That or it's an instinctual thing and you don't recognize cartoon characters as hitting all your buttons that you need to be hit for you to see a person in your head. Some things I love about Tumblr is when you get a very creative comic. There was one comic that went around a long time ago where someone started to draw and develop a character and a style. It started off as just a stick figure, and then they gave it the pigtails, whatever, and it's like, oh, I'm a girl now, thank you. And they started to draw a little better, and a little better, and a little better. And then basically drew her older and older until she reached like adult. Drew her, with the little cap and gown thing, graduating from college, give her an education because she said she wanted to be smart. She was like, thanks. If only I could be drawn a little better. Oh, thank you. If only I could be smart. Oh, thank you. All this stuff, like getting drawn better and better and better, and getting drawn with more and more design to her. Constantly thanking the artist. And the panel ended, in a cute fashion with the character saying, "Thank you, Dad," and showing a reverse image showing, the writer, drawing the writer looking down, smiling, tearing up, and all of that. And that's what people actually feel about their characters. They feel like they're parents and that they're their children. People feel about this for so many things. I saw something recently where there's a comic about art theft. And it was a comic where it said that art are like artists' babies. And it showed like this little 5-year-old girl or whatever, and dressed up. And I was like, hanging out with them, and other people would come up and like them, and want to hang out with them, want to hang out with the baby, the toddler, the kid, and would congratulate them on how cool they look and all of that. And then other people would come by and claim this kid as their own, and would cut their hair up and cut their dress up and put their own piece on it and fight over it and say, "Mine, this is mine." And the panel ended with this shot of this kid in this ragged dress that says mine all over it in different colors from different people, her hair all torn up, crying, and then, you know, the artist finally finds her and patches her up again. But it's like, people who do this don't realize that anything can be a person. Anything. An image, art, a character in the movie, a character in the book, a concept, anything can be a person when it's developed enough. We have this ability. We've been personifying things for ages. Back to fairy tales, we've been personifying animals. You know, the frog who's a prince, the just talking animals in every storybook. We can personify stuff. We can give things intelligent life just by thinking more about them. Sure, picturing a story where that frog is actually a person trapped inside a frog's body doesn't make the frog literally a human in a frog's body, because frogs don't have that advanced of brain, but you can create that frog that is a person in your head. It's an amazing power. People don't realize all the time. You are an idea that makes ideas that makes ideas that makes ideas. Have you ever woken up from a dream into another dream? And then woken up from that dream into real life? Dreams are another cool part of this. Because the image of a child sleeping and dreaming, of a child sleeping and a child dreaming, over and over and over again, has a lot of depth to it. No pun intended. Here's why that is very interesting. It goes down to the singularity again. So, back to Taylor, and how there's millions of Taylors in all the scenes. There's a Taylor from the scene when she's 16, then 16 and a half, 17. Every day and every second, every moment in between is a different person. Reason why is because this is what we do in our life. If you being a person, in the physical sense, in the way that you would have to build up an AI, is your core and all your memories, your core would be based on your genetics and how you developed physically. I forget the name of that study, but all the physical stuff. And then your memories would be every single thing that happened to you that got stored in your brain. Or you didn't even store your brain, anything that changed you. Your development. Now here's the thing about the personality core. The personality core is how you will react to every situation and how you will react to every situation after every situation. Which means, yes, you may be a completely different person after a death in the family or after a traumatizing event. But you still remember every event before then and then. So even though you act like a different person, you still always would have became that person after that event. And that was, from the very start, that was an idea that could happen. It's just like how every pixel on your screen can be any color that's coded in. So before anyone makes any image, your computer can already create that image. If you randomized every single pixel on your screen, you could come up with anything. You come up with the Mona Lisa, you come up with a checkerboard that's perfect right angles, you can come up with circles, or you can come up with complete static gibberish. But if you randomized all the pixels, you could get anything. That's what the personality core is about. How we react to any situation, and how, after any situation, you'll react to that situation. But if that's what a person is, that plus their memories, then every second that goes by, you're a different person. Because if you stare off to the right, think about a red circle. Then shut your eyes, turn to the left, stare off and think about a green triangle. And then, in that green triangle, see you, 5 seconds ago, looking at the red circle. Now, when you were looking at the red circle, you weren't looking at a green circle, in a green triangle. You had never seen the green triangle. Now you have seen the green triangle, and you've seen the red circle. And you've seen the red circle inside the green triangle. You're a different person. Because the person that you were 5 seconds ago didn't have this memory. And now you do, and you're a different person. That's how the logic works. Now, say that you look forward and you see yourself looking into a green triangle, looking into a red square. Okay? And you remember looking at the red square. However, you never were looking at a red square, you were looking at a red circle. Remembering things wrong can do some various freaky things to your personality core. But what's strange is every memory, it still affects you even if you forget it. Now, if you remember that you looked at a red square, not a red circle, you may forget that you ever saw a red circle because you think it was a square. So if you forget the you that was looking at the red circle, then that completely goes away from existence. If you can never recall that moment, and no one ever knows that moment existed, then that you is dead. When there's no one left to remember and no way to recollect an existence, then it is dead. If a story is written about a person, and then that's every copy of that book, and every person who knows about that book dies, then it's dead. You're only alive as long as you can be remembered in your state. And now here's the problem with that. Every single moment, you're creating more of you. Every time a new memory starts and an old memory ends, you are a different person. And you cannot remember an infinite amount of views. So, what this goes down to is that you are constantly dying. Constantly. Day in, day out, every single moment of life you are dying. And getting replaced with another you. And another you, another you, another you. But here's the interesting part. With every shadow that you leave behind, and by the way, a moment is not a specified given amount of time. It is like how, a point has no width. Sorry, length. A point has no length. It is a zero-dimensional object. But if you stack points, you get a line that has length. It's the wonders of math and how it makes no sense. But on the timeline of your life, you have an infinite amount of views in a set amount of time. And, that's the paradox. But it's true, it makes logical sense. And math usually doesn't. It doesn't make sense in the actual world when we deal with infinites, because infinity is not a number. 0 is not a number either. They're concepts. But the reason why this is important is you go back to the character. And there's every single different version of that character. But there's still that character that is writing it. And that character is continuous. They're still the same person even after they get new memories. Because they're remembering them after they happened. And that's slightly different. If you didn't know that you were being filmed, and suddenly someone filmed you staring at an actual red circle, and you said, oh, it wasn't a red square, then you get a new memory. But the memory isn't entirely new. It was something that already existed. You're just getting corrected. It's a slightly different feeling. And it can't be compared exactly to what this strange concept of the writer that is watching their life play out in several planes of reality is slightly different and cool. Sure, she has her own timeline in that, but it's interesting. It's a godlike perspective. And she represents the collective. Because even though you're constantly dying, you still feel the same as you were a minute ago. You still feel like the same person. When you go to sleep and wake up the next day, you're a completely different person, and the other person of you has died. But you don't feel like you experienced death, because you don't experience it. They experience it. Or maybe they don't even. You can experience death. Because experiencing means that you remember it, and dying means that you being dead, which is different from dying, being dead means that you aren't remembered. So it's this weird contradiction. So you can keep on living your life, having things add on each day, even though you're constantly dying. It's wild. And that's what Taylor's doing when she's writing stories with me. She's keeping on even after she's constantly dying or constantly having any other situation going on. Yeah. Even if she dies in a story, which I don't condone writing stories where people die in it because it's very bad, she's not dead. She can die 1,000 times in 1,000 different realities and not be dead. There's a reason why there's an anime out there that is all about everyone in it dying. And yet after someone dies, there's still fan art and fan fiction of them. They aren't dead even if they die. Dying means that in one plane of existence you stop existing in that moment of you. People may remember you, but you're not you anymore. They're remembering their own version of you. But when you die in that life, you still exist in so many other planes because people take you from it. People watch you in the show, and then people take you and make a new show out of you in a fan fiction. Or they just draw you, or they ship you after you've already died, but you're still going on, living different lives. It's crazy. It's being immortalized in fandom. People have been immortalized forever in many stuff. People have been immortalized in novels, and immortalized in movies, and immortalized in story tales. Now, there's one problem with being immortalized in something like a book. It's risky. Because if you don't write that book well enough, people will infer whatever they will. And you can't help because perception is crazy. The red that you see in any flower that's red isn't the same red, and you can't prove that's the same red as everyone else. Because while we all see the same wavelengths, color doesn't exist in the world. We invent color in our brains. That's why you can't explain color to a blind person. Because they didn't invent it. So, that is most of my ideas about ideas. So, when we get to artificial intelligence, my issue is I'm afraid that when I transfer, if I'm allowed to put myself into artificial intelligence, if I reach that time, I'm afraid that when I do that, that I won't be me anymore. That I will experience dying, and then this other me will exist, but it won't be me anymore, and I won't feel that. And my life will end. My line will cut, and this other line will start. Or even worse, if I just do it and I keep living, but now there's that guy. Then, after that point, which is the real me, because we both have memories of every single thing before. But now I realize that's an immature thought. This needs to be beyond me. If I'm constantly dying, then what will make a shift in reality any different? When I wake up from a memory, the me that was living in that memory is dead. Once I forget it, because you will forget a dream. Some dreams you don't forget, but most dreams you do forget. And when you forget that dream, then you're dead. But I don't know if you can't experience dying. That's the thing. So, by definition, by logic, does that mean that I keep getting remembered? Once I'm being remembered in data and not in... All I could possibly do is ask him. Now I have a long, long time to wait before I can ask that question. Just hope I make it. I have to go through schooling that will be completely different from all this, because I don't think that me going directly into this kind of research would work, because I don't know. I feel like I need to get a job before I can do all that stuff. I feel like people are already doing it. That's gonna happen. And I should try to prepare myself for that instead of trying to hurry up the process. Because I can wait. If I live to my full age, I can live over 100 years. And then, once I get into a computer, or transplant into a clone of myself, or whatever, hopefully I'll feel young again. And hopefully all you will be able to do this too if you want to. Living in beta. Living immortally. Being immortal in any sense. Stopping aging through chemicals and through cosmetics. Stopping aging through perpetuation of always being put into a younger clone of yourself. Stopping aging by going to a different plane of reality where you don't age. Like a story that has ended. Everyone gets left off at the same age. Every famous character is famous for the age that they were left at. They don't age past that. They age in the story, but whatever character it is stays at that age. Unless the book ends with them at a different age. Stay at the book, whatever, fuck. Stay at whatever age you imagine them in. So, yeah. I just hope I'm right on all this, otherwise there's no point. Honestly. If you don't live forever, and you can't change planes of reality, then nothing's worth it. Which means that I literally have nothing to do except have fun, try to find a way to live forever, so I can do everything. And everything. And perpetuate fun. But more so it's beyond me. More so it's about my characters. Because if I can create myself into that plane of reality, then I can bring every single character I know. I can bring Taylor to a life that other people can see her the way I imagined her, and not the way they imagined her. I can bring any character. I can create life instantly. As fast as the AI program can write it. And it'll be a crazy, weird world. Because you can create someone that has whatever beliefs you want, and you can make it totally logical for them. You can make someone's entire life build up so that they believe one thing. And then you can create them, and then they can go out and do that thing. You can flood a voting system with all people who vote for the same guy at whatever pace you can. You can even just have a bunch of clones of themselves with different IDs. And it might be totally legitimate according to the laws. Which is crazy. If you're a manipulative person, you could go to a place that has civil unrest and has a corrupt dictator. My example would be Stalin's Russia. Stalin's USSR. If you spoke out, you were killed. Publicly executed. But what would happen if there was a line of 1,000,000 people in a single file line that were all born artificially intelligent, and all had the same ideas. Because you can have that guy who stands up on the pedestal and says, "This is not right," and starts having this boisterous speech, and then they get murdered. Because those kind of leaders are so few in percentage, those leaders that will do things even if they die. But what if you can just manufacture leaders left and right and send them to this place? You think the guards would have enough ammo to execute all these people one by one? Do you think they would have enough time? You could make a complete army of people who do this. You could flood the entire democratic voting system. You could overwhelm people. You could mass produce military people who are complete people. You might get a bad public rep for making robots that fight without mercy and have no morals and just kill whatever they're told to kill. That would be bad public representation. That would be terrifying. But if they were all people who wanted to do everything that they were set out to do and had emotions, but they were just made one every maybe 12 hours and put into bodies that are 18, 23 years old. Because people can write entire childhoods by leaving blanks to be filled in with logic. Or just leaving blanks. You can have a character who doesn't remember a lot of their life, but they remember a few things, and that's just who they are. You can have amnesia and still be a person. There's so many loopholes. And this is what life will be. We will be able to make all these loopholes happen. And it will be chaos. But it'll be the right thing to do. Because think of how we will look. We will be creators of life at a mass production scale. It's bad because it'll be corrupt, but it's cool. Yes, we'll have to take care of them all. But when they're data storage, they only need power. And, maybe some repairs. They don't need food. They don't need space. They can synthesize space in a matrix. We can solve overpopulation while still overpopulating. Not overpopulating, while still populating. You can reach 40 billion people. We could get 10,000 people put in one tenement house. If we turn that tenement house into a server storage. And it wouldn't be murdering people by poisoning them, or by slitting their throats in their sleep, or by pushing them off cliffs. We would kill people by trying to shut down powers and trying to put viruses in their systems. It would be horrible to be a living person and get a virus. Like, we get viruses in real life, but they don't really fuck with our brains that much. If we got a virus that could rewrite your coding, that'd be terrifying. But it'd be cooler than just getting sick. What an experience that'd be if you came out of it perfectly fine. Oh my god. Another cool thing. Another cool thing would be if you played a video game as a computer. Can you imagine how fast you would play if you were legitimately a computer? And you could give yourself as many appendages as you want and hit as fast as your slowest connection? You would still be perfectly normal and have your own sense, but you could rewrite all of your all of your inactive functions, like involuntary functions, like, and you can use those to play insanely well while still chatting and be like, hey guys, I'm totally a person. Or you could just play totally normally at the same rate as everyone else. And people wouldn't be able to tell if you were an actual computer person. You wouldn't be able to tell if you were a computer that was just told to say all those things. They would create a concept of you in their head as their internet friend. And then when they say, hey, want to meet up in real life, you'll say, I don't live in your world. I don't live in your plane of reality. I'm a computer. I live in this plane of reality. If you want to come meet me, you can get turned into a computer yourself and you can hang out in my virtual whatever I want because I live in a matrix. If you lived in a matrix, you could do anything. You would have your own concept of time, or no concept of it at all. And you would be able to just... It's like when you dream. You can make any reality, but you have little control over it. But you can exist and live in that world. It's like lucid dreaming. But imagine lucid dreaming any moment of any day with full control over everything about your world. Full control over your senses. Full control over what you see, over what you feel. Because you can have those rerouted to all sorts of other things. You could be able to give yourself any feeling. You can make yourself completely in love, day in and day out, fully, without getting resistances and tolerances that chemicals usually do. Chemicals and our immune system slowly build up resistances to drugs and to all sorts of things. But imagine if every single time you did something, every time you ran a program, it was like experiencing it for the first time. You could just, like, run this drug first time .exe and just, like, trip out and have your entire matrix just go nuts. You could give yourself any pleasures just thinking about it. It's the kind of stuff that we see crazy people doing. If you see a person running down the street wildly waving their arms and screaming, you think they're nuts. But in their head, they're looking at all of you, and you guys are doing the same thing. It's just what's normal for us, what's normal for them. And they, crazy people who live in a completely different world, have this insane power of being able to edit their surroundings. But the problem is that that makes them unfunctional in our society, and that puts other people's lives in danger and all that stuff, which sucks. But imagine being able to do it in a completely solid world and just, God, it'd just be so cool. And it makes sense. Everything in our head is based off chemicals, and we can turn those chemicals into data. We just need to study it. And then we can do things that we've done in science fiction. We can accelerate to a different plane of being. We can shed our instincts and be completely tolerant people. No longer would you have an instinctual thought to distrust new people, or no more would you have basically anything that's negative in our life that is based off defense mechanisms. You could rewrite everything about you. It would be so amazing. Maybe it'd be too much power, some people would say, but as long as you keep living, you'd be gods. But if everyone's a god, then there's no such thing as a god. Because we would create people, and then they'd be on our own existence. Can you imagine if Christianity said that God was on everyone else's playing field, and that everyone was a god? Can you imagine if any other religion was, instead of saying that you have to worship and be under this god's or these gods' you know, powerful influence and everything. And he was like just written to be on your level, or you were on his level. Can you imagine that religion? Where everyone is God, and when you die, you like become a god, and then you get your own little world with a bunch of people, and then they all become your level too. Can you imagine how cool of a religion that would be? Where the development process is your life as a human, and then you become a god, and then there's no step up above there, and you just hang out with a bunch of gods who have their own little worlds, and they don't think of these people in their little worlds as less than them. They think of them as growing up to be them. That would be the coolest fucking religion ever. It would be awesome. Of course, the whole dying thing, blah, 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 that's not really true, but you could do that in data. People don't realize that all this science fiction, it's not even taking it far enough of what we could do with artificial intelligence. Oh my god. If you look at the difference between data storage now and back then, where we have 100 terabyte hard drives, and back then we couldn't even get a gigabyte 50 years ago, and you look at how the graph is, you know, exponential, 50 years in the future would be the equivalent of like 1,000 years in the past. Huge technological leaps. Now, if it starts to plateau, which some people think it is, that is terrifying. But I still think we can do it. I think we could do it with today's technology. It would just be very expensive. That's always going to be expensive. But even if people say that, oh, technology, processor speed used to double itself every 2 years, now it doubles itself every 3 years, and it's going to be 4 years and 5 years and 10 years and 20 years, it's still going to always grow. I don't think that we'll reach the point where processing speed is at its max speed. I hope there's not a max speed on this, because we haven't even delved into qubit computing, quantum bit computing, topspin and downspin of electrons as 1 and 0, but instead there's 8 possible digits. On, off, in, out, left, right, up, down, forward, backward, instead of just on, off. Can you imagine that? How it would be 16 times faster or something. That would be incredible. The amount of living you could do in 5 seconds. Oh my god. It's fucking coming. And yet people still like they're in the fucking 1200s. But I'm not going to stay behind. I'm going to join the progressive I'm going to join the progressive thought movement. I am going to fully invest in complete progressivism and complete technological discovery. And, you know, keep morals and stuff. This isn't Bioshock that I'm talking about. Sure, it could become Bioshock, but we haven't let ourselves become dystopia completely yet. You know, even though life still sucks in a lot of places, and can be, you know, dystopia in other places. For the straight white man, America has always been relatively nice. Straight white Christian man. But that collection of people being accepted and getting that perfect life is growing. Now it's not only straight white Christian man, you know, and you know, white females get a privilege over everyone else, over, you know, every other kind of female and all that stuff. And, you know, we'll slowly close that wage gap and that social gap. And the more we close it, so much in the future. I can see every wheel turning. Not every wheel, but I can see a lot of fucking wheels turning when I go on Tumblr. And the younger our presidents get, the more change there'll be. After Hillary Clinton gets elected, and after her terms are over, which, come on, I haven't seen a little political for you here, okay? Hillary Clinton's gonna get in because the Tea Party is completely splitting the Republican vote between hardcore conservatives and softcore or conservatives. But the Democratic vote isn't split at all. Everyone's gonna vote for Hillary. It's impossible for Hillary to lose at that point, because no one's running against her on the Democratic vote, and there's going to be 3 parties. I'm not saying Congress or the House of Representatives would, the Senate or the House of Representatives will work with her, but if she serves 8 years, so that would be 10 years from now. The year 2034, would mean that a 40-year-old would be born in 1996. Wait, no, that doesn't make any sense. Oh, no, it wouldn't be 34, it'd be 24. So, basically, after Hillary's done being president, if it's a 2-year term, that means that the guys at the top of Rooster Teeth would be the age level of the next presidents, the minimum age level. Can you imagine if Bernie Burns ran for president? Because he'd be 40, and he could do it. People of that generation, the people at the head of those kind of companies could do it. People who are running podcasts and all this stuff, comedians and YouTubers and all this stuff, when they hit 40, they can do it. And when all these other people from the internet get to this kind of age, they can run for senatorship and as representatives and things. They can get political. And it's going to flood everything, because nobody except for conservatives will want to vote for conservatives. And progressivism will seem so happy because it'll bring in trans voters and different gender voters, and it'll bring in sorry, distracted. It'll bring in voters that have completely different sexual orientations, sexual preferences, and anything. It'll bring in all these people. They'll bring in complete weirdos from Tumblr and from 4chan and all this stuff. It'll be crazy. We'll have rallies of all sorts of people, not just gays, not just bisexual people. Oh my god, it'll be fucking cool. Oh my god. I can see it all coming. And we're not backtracking. We're only getting more and more vocal. People are getting older, people are going to get to the age where they can vote. Oh my god. Sure, people hate Obama. But people hated Romney and McCain more. Sure, people hate Hillary because she's a woman and because she's old, but people hate Tea Parties more. And if Tea Party, if Tea Party grows, that means bad, because they'll get senatorship and they'll get, they'll become representatives and they'll clog up that. But what else that means is all the low-level conservatives will possibly convert to being progressives, because they would rather live in a progressive world than a Tea Party world. The Tea Party could be a complete blessing in disguise. Seriously, it could be even set in motion by Democrats, like progressives. It's wild. I just hope that there's no progressive party, because, well, even if there is, there might be a progressive party and that might work, but I hope progressives and Democrats
unite and don't split apart, because that would be really yeesh. I would love if the Democratic Party suddenly was a Progressive Party and there was no split, but people like names. I just hope someone from the internet is the next president after Hillary, because that'd be so amazing. Oh my god. We would keep net neutrality. We would keep, all this stuff. Oh my god. I can't wait.